All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. I am Brian Leighton, the chair of the school committee. I am calling the special school committee meeting to order. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being broadcast at a later date over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. This meeting will be broadcast at a later date through the local access cable channel and on the public access Facebook page, and will be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Our item for the agenda is new business, finalist candidate interview for superintendent of schools, Joni Menard. We will be doing a 75-minute interview. We will notify you when there's 35 minutes left and 10 minutes left. We have 13 questions for you tonight. We will start with an opening statement and conclude with a closing statement, and we will go down the line, introduce ourselves, and ask one question at a time. So at this time, I will open it up to an opening statement.
First of all, I wanted to thank each of you for welcoming me here and having me here tonight. Let me just tell you very briefly about my educational journey. So I've been a public school teacher for 11 years. I taught overseas also for 2 years. I've been an adjunct professor for Worcester State, so I taught adults also. After that, my parents were both in education. I made some very intentional steps because I knew that I eventually wanted to become a superintendent. And my personal view of a superintendent is that they have a really wide depth of information and experience at all levels. So I became a middle school STEM curriculum coordinator in Medway. From there, I became an elementary school principal in Petersham. Just for those of you guys who don't know, Petersham is its own district, only school in the district. And at the time, I only had 125 students. I had students riding horses to school. Very charming school. I had no assistant. Talk about wearing many hats. I had to wear them all because I had no data specialist, disciplinarian, anything like that. I went on and knew that I also, because I had taught the middle school level, 5th, 7th, and 8th grade, that I needed to have secondary experience. So I went on to Gil Montague, to the regional district. I was principal for Great Falls Middle School and Turners Falls High School. Very similar to the situation here. The school's connected, but treated as a very separate school, very different needs, a lot of shared spaces. But having the tours today, it became very evident from talking to the principals. I was like, wow, I live this. I live what you guys are living. So I know a lot of the opportunities and ways that you need to accommodate being a smaller school district. From there, I knew I needed central administration experience. I think that's very important for a superintendent to have. I am currently the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction in Holliston, and I know it seems quite a bit larger to all of you. In Metro West, it is considered small. You have to put it in perspective, right? The thing is that I wanted to bring out, though, I do wear many, many hats just because we are kind of lean at Central, so I have many different hats in charge of all curriculum, all PD, all homeschooling, all grants, just keeps on going, right? Multi-language learners. I think it's important for you to know, when I was a teacher, I was the union rep in my building, so I have that view. I now sit in joint management labor, union labor meetings. Wow. Union management meetings, right, on a monthly basis. I was in union contract negotiations as a teacher, went to arbitration twice, got pretty ugly. I have been in teacher negotiation contracts at the other end on the central administrator side. I wanted to bring up that I have a business background. I work for both Waste Management and Browning Ferris Industries as a sales manager. And why do you think I'm bringing that up? I think it's really interesting because as a superintendent, you really need to market the schools. You need to sell what the schools offer and what they can give. Sales is all about relationships. I think a superintendent's role is building those partnerships with the town players, town manager, fire, police, different organizations, as well as with all the stakeholders in the school district. From a personal standpoint, I've been married almost 35 years. I have 2 grown children, and they both chose to get married this calendar year. So I am just throwing money. My husband and I are kind of like, all right. And one's getting married next week, so I will be in
Wonderful.
Silver Spring for a big celebration. As an undergraduate, I grew up in Ohio. I am a proud Buckeye, graduated from The Ohio State University. And for Michigan people, you and I will have some serious conversations because I am a very passionate fan. And then the rest of my education's in New England. I have my master's in elementary ed from Anna Maria. I have my CAGS from Fitchburg State, and then I got my doctorate from University of Hartford. And I think it's really important because it was a cohort that we went every week, and it was K through 12 leaders, it was higher ed leaders, and it was business leaders. So really put that global perspective for me again, what role we need to play as leaders in K through 12. I have my doctorate, but I do not go by Dr. Menard, I go by Joni, and that's how I want to be addressed. My name is kind of strange, blame my parents on that. It is spelled like Joanne, but it's pronounced Joni. So if you say Joanne, it's just, I'm not being snotty, it just doesn't register. I'm not exactly young, so it just doesn't register with me. I just wanted to make sure, point out 2 things I gave you. One thing is very important to arm you with my pre-entry plan. And, my tagline is listen, learn, lead. And I think that's really important to come in. I'm not a bull in a china shop. I have been in many districts, and every district has different needs. It's not about what Joni wants, it's about what the district needs, right? And different schools within a district have different needs also. And it does have in there, that I would be kind of going on a listening tour with all sorts of different stakeholders. And it's people within the school community itself, but going out into the community. And what I mean by that is meeting town manager on a regular basis, FinCom, all these stuff, select board, all these different groups. But it's also me going out and representing the school district out to Lions Club meetings, out to festivals, all of that. But that's just, we could do a whole meeting on my entry plan, but you do have that so you can look. One more thing I gave you, I was, very cognizant, as you well know, because you would be my evaluators, that I need to meet certain standards, instructional leadership, management, operations, community engagement, and professional culture. I did give you different examples of that, and there are links, so please go to the digital copy, and you'll be able to open those links. Okay? Thank you.
Why live? Oh, first of all, my name is Tony
Yes.
Stillbrady.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm also from Ohio.
What part? I'm sorry.
I'm from Xenia, Ohio.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm from Findlay, Ohio.
Oh, I've been there
Yes.
many times.
75.
Fed the squirrels in the parks in Findlay, Ohio.
Okay.
Out of my hand, which was really weird.
Yes. Okay, so you're a Buckeye fan, right?
I am.
Okay,
My
good.
sister will kill me if I didn't say that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Have you ever dotted the I?
Have I dotted it? No, but guess who I got to work with?
Who?
Woody Hayes.
Oh, okay. All right. So you got good credit.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So the question that I want to
Yes.
ask you is why Lunenburg?
Mhm.
Why at this point in your career?
Mhm.
Why do you feel that this place is the right fit for you at this moment in your
Mhm.
career? And what about this exact role moved you to apply?
Okay. So, why Lunenburg? Size, location, academics, and expectations. Those are the 4 things that drove me. And let me kind of break those down. I know I need to be cognizant of time. My sweet spot, my passion is being in smaller school districts. Why? Because I can make a bigger impact. Even being in the school size I am now, I have a lot more red tape. I appreciate the fact if you're in a smaller school district, there's less red tape and you can make more of a positive impact sooner. I love being able to know all the staff, know all the students. I think you can kind of tell, sales is my background, relationships are my passion. I think that's fun. I think that's how you get a lot of buy-in. I think that's how you move things a lot quicker when you empower people, and part of that is building relationships with them. Location, gonna be selfish, I live in Holden. It's a sweet commute, 30 minutes, right? Be honest, really, really nice commute. Academics, I am really impressed. I live My role right now is part of it is working with teachers to develop curriculum maps, and it's been a journey, and those had not been done before. And when I decided to apply here, and part of my research before I applied is, I saw all the work you guys have done. I know what of a commitment that is. I know what buy-in that needs to take of the teachers, and that they're ready for that rigorous teaching, right? And that excites me. It excites me what opportunities you are providing students. And then another thing that excited me were the district-wide rubrics and expectations in different academic areas, which is pretty unheard of. And we're trying to do that in the district I'm at right now, and that's a heavy lift, being on the principal end to do that. So that tells me that people here, staff truly care. They want to do right by students, and they want to set the bar high. So that's why Lunenburg. Why this point in my career? I'm ready. I walked you through my journey. I made very intentional steps to get here, right? I would not have come here. I did not become a principal until our youngest was in college, because I knew I could not do justice to that job. Same thing here. I knew I could not apply for superintendent's roles until I went through all those steps, so I can intelligently talk to staff, so I can intelligently talk to you. I've been able to, be the boots on the ground, and I'll talk about culture and climate later, and really digging in with the students. Hopefully I'll get to there. If not, I'll do it in my closing statement. Why the right fit for you? I already answered that. You align with my beliefs. And why the role of superintendency? It really does bring my skill set all together, and that's what keeps me going. I love being able to combine, I have a marketing degree from Ohio State. This really is looking at marketing skills. It's using relationship skills. It is using academic knowledge. It is using my knowledge of all the different age groups. It's using my leadership skills. All of those combined, and that gets my juices going.
Any follow-up?
All right. I'm Carol Ashambo. I'm a retired teacher, and I have the budgeting question.
Okay, look at you.
Please discuss your operational experience in budgeting. What staff do you rely on most for budget preparation? Excuse me. And why? How far out should a school district reasonably be projecting out their budgets? What does the budget preparation process look like for you? What has worked well for you or not with respect to software or processes for preparation and information sharing?
I could be talking to you guys all night about this, as you know, but I will try to do it justice. I've been lucky enough that when I was in sales, I was a sales manager. I was responsible for all our budget. So that was kind of baptism by fire, and I did that out of college. And I am lucky enough now in my role that I am part of every budget subcommittee meeting, every policy subcommittee meeting. At our budget subcommittee meetings, FinCom is at, we have other people come depending on what the topic is. Sometimes it could be select board people, sometimes it can be, there are select board people there, I'm sorry. Sometimes it could be town manager. But I have been lucky enough to be put in positions. When I was principal, I was responsible for all my own lines. Petersham, I got a very valuable lesson. They went old school, which I totally appreciated them doing. I had 99 lines in Munis. They gave me a Babel binder. I had 99 dividers. I had to keep evidence for all 99 of those lines. I made that binder available to my staff. I said, you pick that apart, please don't lose anything because I don't have any copies, right? But you look at that and you guys come up with ideas. We had some tough budget years. Where can we cut? What can we do? You had asked, who do I include in the budgetary process? I include the boots on the ground all the way up, right? they are coming up, the higher you go, the less connected you are to the classroom, and I purposely put myself in situations that I am connected to that. How do I do that? I empower teachers to give feedback all the time. I ask for their feedback. Today when I was talking to the principals, they were asking me budgetary questions, I said an expectation that I would have of you is to make sure that you are involving your staff in your budgetary recommendations that you bring forward to me. So it's really looking at how can we best use our jobs, best use our funds. And I also said, you need to look at it through a lens that's not, it's very emotional, decisions you need to make. So I think you need to try to take as much emotion out as you can. So you're looking at, what are we funding? What's the impact for students? What's the cost to that? What's the data? We've seen growth. We haven't seen growth. Why are we continuing this? Or do we need to modify it? So it's looking at all of that. Let's see here. You're talking about, okay, so let me kind of throw a loop in here. I think it's my responsibility to talk about budget all year long. And let me tell you what I mean by that. So I am very much, when I was a principal, I did this, and I would want to do this as a superintendent. I would have twice a month newsletters for the community that I would work with the town manager to see if we could either post it on the site for the people that don't get the, like the messaging. I would want to have twice a month staff some more newsletters. If you guys don't know, that's a digital platform, and I have some examples in there of newsletters that I've done. It would also involve me going out on a regular basis for superintendent chats off-site. What do I mean by that? When I was in Petersham, I would go to like Lions Club meetings or wherever people thought. When I was in Turner's Falls, a lot of people did not have the availability they didn't have cars. So I went to a community center and talked. It's talking about budget all year long. It's talking about that vision and what we're doing. I think that I know I would be the biggest advocate of showing what we do with the funds we get. And how do we do that? We do it through the children. We show the community what the children are doing, and it's through those newsletters. It's me going out and talking. How often would I do that? I would go out to community chats, a day one and an evening one, once a month, okay? I would want to meet regularly, though, with townspeople all the time, meaning town manager, police, fire, build that relationship so it's not a school versus them. We are a town, we are Lunenburg, we're looking at where can we best use our funds. I want to get buy-in from them. One thing that I thought was really important in Holliston that we did, which I would want to model here, when we were developing our strategic plan my first year, it was 20-some people. I know you think that might be a lot, but talk about buy-in. We had the select board chair, the town manager. This was like developing the strategic plan, right? We had 2 school committee members. We had high school students, which I was like, that's incredible to bring that voice. And then we had administrators, parents, all of that. But we put everything down. All those decisions we make are based on that strategic plan. They bought into that. So every conversation we have, we are pointing back to that strategic plan. There's no playing games here. We were very upfront. These are our goals. This is how we're going to get here. I think that you're talking about how far should a school district be projecting out. Capital's different than a regular budget, right? And I've been lucky enough, or whatever you want to consider, but I've been very involved in that and capital expenses. I've had to go to bat to fund our curricular resources. Very proud to have K through 12 math curricular resources, which had been 20-some years before we had that. So I had to go to bat for that. So that's a different process, right? And that has to be, like, to me, you should really be projecting that 3 or 5 years out, because you could have a schedule on what roofing projects, what building projects, what curriculum reviews are we gonna do, all of that. I think the budget really needs to be talked about starting the whole year, but that needs to be a regular topic that I'm talking about with principals and leadership every single meeting, right? That means starting summer retreats, summer meetings, all the way through. It's working with you on your expectations of how you want that presented. I'm very comfortable with having all these, beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year goals, tying the budget to that, tying data to that, giving priority needs, kind of specifying all that, and I would go by your lead. I know that I would want to provide you, though, with the priority needs, but give you the reasoning behind those, right? It's not just nice. I am very comfortable. I know Munis. You were asking about software and preparation. Very comfortable with Excel, Google Docs. I tend to go more towards Google Docs, but I'm comfortable with anything how you would want it presented. I think the biggest thing is transparency, all along the way with you and the community. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're
I don't
good.
even know why I raised my hand.
You're at school.
I know. Brian's supposed to call me, but I'm glad you did.
Okay.
I think it is important for us to have a public-facing budget that people can use, access, manipulate, add and subtract.
Mhm.
If you were hired,
Yes.
could you get that done in time for the launch of the 25-26 school year?
Yes, I would be working very frantically, talking to people this summer, but yes,
Okay, second question.
yes.
How would you do that in light of the things that are happening in Washington, such as the dismantling of
Yep.
a cabinet department of education?
Yep. I would do the best I could. As you guys all know, I'm running a lot of the grants. The grants, I had approved, then I didn't have approved. And then I had to do more information, and now they're approved again, right? I wish I had a magic ball. I don't. There is, it's very hard to track what's going on. I can tell you how I can combat that. I am very active in statewide organizations and very active in following up on things. I used to be, when I was still principal, I was I have to think of acronyms, Massachusetts School Administrators Association's Ed Policy Chair for the state for 6 years. So I did a lot of position papers with other principals, and we brought those forward to the state, right? I am now in Athena working group for assistant superintendents. I'm in the Mass working groups for assistant superintendents. I go to conferences. I'm active in the Tri-County Superintendent's Roundtable. I think it's important to do all those things because that's where you become informed, and that's where you get information from other people to able to kind of better predict what's going on. It's this past year has been very interesting and frustrating for a lot of leaders because it's this way this day and it's this way this day, right? But I think my responsibility is that you would expect me to be able to be very active in statewide organizations, that I'm arming myself with the most current information that we can possibly get.
Any other follow-up? All right, Peter?
How would those who've worked under you describe you as a leader? What concrete actions have you taken to empower those around you to make decisions and move into leadership roles?
So this is an interesting question. So we have a group that we call full admin, that we include central admin, principals, assistant principals, and student services directors, right? And in that group, we just did a book study on a book called Trust and Inspire. And part of that book was learning what your leadership styles are. From Stephen Covey, I've identified, we did all these little assessments, as a transformative leader. I really look at that global picture, but my style is to empower leaders. So I'm lucky enough to have a curriculum staff underneath me. We have a shared agenda-making, decision-making that They don't have to go through me, they can just put it on the agenda. I'm very much about empowering others to do something. I'm very cognizant of giving them opportunities to shine, giving them credit, letting them showcase what they can do. I was lucky enough, I think last Thursday, this is all running together. Is this Tuesday? I don't know, I'm sorry. So yes, I don't know anymore. Thursday, we had a school committee meeting, and we had a end of the year report for teaching and learning. And I had the curriculum staff present, and I thought it was very important that I showcase them, right, and empower them. So they're bringing their expertise, showcasing what they know, showcasing the amazing progress they have made with students, and they showcase that using data. We're lucky enough we have a data dashboard, so we're able to kind of pull that right away. I have asked them all along the way, and I'm also, I work very closely with our multi-language teachers. We have 5 in the district. And I always ask them, you know, what do you want to see from us meeting together? What can make us better as a team? I also am very cognizant of what can I provide you to make you a more effective leader. I work on providing them PD. I sit down and collaborate with them. I'm their critical friend. They're my critical friend. It is interesting though, because we've had this conversation, and you know, I flat out ask people what they need from me as being a leader. What else am I not giving you? I find that to be very effective, but that's only effective because I've built a relationship with them and they know I'm not going to come down on them and be negative. I'm really going to hear them and listen to them. I was saying earlier today, the day I realize I can't grow anymore or don't take suggestions is the day you need to ask for my retirement. I need to get out. Because I know I can always be better, right? So I'm always gonna ask, and I ask the people that I work with and I lead how I can be better. But it's only because of the relationship that we built that I can get some honest answers from them. I think I gave you some examples of concrete actions. And we very critically look at professional development opportunities for them, what would work, what they could bring back. We had a very good discussion about, you know, what they wanted to showcase in their presentation, what was important. I, you know, kind of gave them some guidelines. We need to be data-based. We need to show growth. You guys are making amazing growth. We need to show that. But they got to choose how they showed that. You know, so it's kind of like giving them some guidelines, but having a lot of voice and choice, just like you should give to students also.
Any follow-up? Mr. Skolnick?
So,
The Buckeye.
yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm always a little wary about is
Mhm.
people that have aimed at leadership roles. You know, like I find the tale of Cincinnatus to be a really good mark of a leader. You know, he was a general in Rome.
Mhm.
Rome then lost a series of battles to a neighboring tribe. They found him in his field. He was at his plow, and they asked, "Will you come back?" He won in 16 days. He assumed the emperorship of Rome, and then as soon as the crisis had abated and everybody was restored, he left. Why should we not be wary of ambition like you had outlined in your opening in terms of your capacity as a leader?
Because my ambition was very conscious steps to realize that the skill set a superintendent should have, in my opinion. And to be a good leader, it's really hard. Let me give you an example. So when I was a middle school teacher, I worked with somebody that was an evaluator, and she was really struggling with, why aren't the teachers respecting me? You have not gone through that role. You have not been in their shoes. It's really, really hard for people to know that you know what you're talking about. You've been there, right? You've lived there. You've been in their shoes. You have an understanding of what they want. I can anticipate wants. I can anticipate needs. That doesn't mean I know everything, but it means that I have a very solid understanding of what they need to be successful. And I think it's very important to see that. I have been in districts that a superintendent hasn't had all those steps, and it's very evident to all that there's missing gaps. And it becomes a big problem because they lose some of the staff there that they know they don't have experience with that. You know, I'll give you another example. I knew in elementary school, because I taught middle school, one of my weaknesses was literacy. And so I knew for my teachers to take me seriously in all the assessments they do and how they work with students, I needed to be trained myself in how they administer assessments, so I know what they're talking about. I can, again, anticipate their needs. When they're asking me for something they need, it's like, oh yeah, you do need that because you did this, this, and this. I am not power hungry at all. It's just me being very conscientious of what experiences I think a really strong leader needs. And I think to run an entire school district, it is so advantageous to have all those different experiences.
Any other follow-up? Laura?
Can you talk about your experiences with school systems within a small town and the cultural issues that you might need to be aware of in this particular role, and if or how that would change how you do approach the job?
And I told you, you know, my passion are small towns, right? And I think every town has its own wants and needs. And the way I would discover that, I would not make any assumptions, is through my entry plan, is asking all sorts of different groups of people. So it means people out in the community, senior citizens, parents, you know, town leaders, all these different groups, right, of what they think the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats are. I fully understand that you do not touch certain things the school district does. They are traditional, they are honored, they are valued, and you need, you know, there's nuances that you need to respect and do. I think it's, you know, I have a solid understanding of that everybody has to pitch in and everybody has many, many different roles. I think, you know, talking to the principals today just about the nuances when you are a smaller school district, kind of how you make decisions and how you have to make some changes in order to offer what's best for students. I know all those little kind of nuances that you have to work around. I think it's important in all of this, you know, in my entry plan, I'd also be talking to a lot of students. I think that a lot of times, you know, that's where some people miss the boat, you know, that they need to have say in their school district. A kindergartner can give you very good feedback of what should be done in their school and what shouldn't. Every place I've been at, I would want to continue that. I was talking to the principals today. I would want to do that alongside them, and they seemed receptive to have culture and climate clubs within their schools. And it's not always with the students that you would anticipate me asking. I purposely went out when I was a principal and would go to some students that low attendance, behavioral issues, and get their opinions, right? And I think it's really important to not only ask, you're finding out cultural things there too, but you need to follow up and follow through on things. And if you're not able to do things, you need to explain why, and you need to explain that to students too. I did the same things with staff, right? And like, what things do you want to see? People that are passionate about being here. People want to come to work. You don't have a retention problem, you know, with the staff. Students are excited. They're willing to learn. You know, everybody has an off day, but you need to have them part of the school. Something else that excites me about Lunenburg is all the student voice with all the artwork, you know, at every level, right? They can see themselves in that school. That's critical for them to see them, you know, as a contributor to their school. They're making a difference in their school. But all of those are cultural pieces that I cannot make assumptions. I need to find out by building relationships and asking the right people.
Any follow-up? All right, I have the next question, number
Yep.
5.
Yep.
Student safety encompasses far more than just physical security. It includes emotional well-being, feeling seen and supported, and having equitable access to learning. In your current or past leadership roles, what have you done to ensure all students feel safe and supported at school? What role should community partners play, including but not limited to resource officers and comfort dogs, public safety departments? What challenges have you faced in student safety, and what are your goals moving forward? What does a truly safe school look like to you from a student's point of view?
Sure. Okay, this is a lot in here, but I will try to do it justice. So one thing, I fully realize that if a student can't, students come with a lot of baggage and a lot of things going on, and we need to help support that. I'm in the district I'm at, right beside of me, we have a director of social and emotional learning and equity. I'm lucky enough, he encouraged me, we did it together. We did a 2-year program through DESE called Influence 100. It's all about supporting all different groups of students and really looking at all their needs, the whole child, right? So we traveled all over the state. It really gave us a really good perspective of what we can do and what we should do for students. I think that every role, you guys, I'm kind of going through here. When I've been a principal, I had a very good relationship with, in Petersham, I still go out to dinner with the chief of police. He came to the school every day. He and I partnered together. We got to the point where we were having reunification drills with families at school. And we did a lot of safety improvements, right? So that was something that we did together, right? When I went to Gilmontague, we had a SRO, which I was in full support of. He had not had a comfort dog. I went in his support to town meeting and advocated for us to get a comfort dog. Amazing the difference that it can make for some students and the connection. It's amazing. I saw that every day at Gilmontague. Unfortunately, we got him during COVID, but after COVID, it was amazing what he could do. I think that it's very important that in my role as a superintendent, I would like to continue this. Every place I've been on the safety committee for the district. And it's not just the schools, it's fire, it's police, right? And now it's really bringing in IT people just because of all the cybersecurity attacks and all of that. We're doing cybersecurity roundtables and not just physical safety roundtables now, which is really interesting. I think that when you do these safety meetings and roundtables, it's very important to communicate out as a collective group and educate the community what's been going on. That schools, fire, police are all working for this together. Again, that's making it us as a town, not us versus them. I think it's my responsibility, other than the safety committee as a superintendent, is to have individual relationships with them, that I'm going and meeting one-on-one with the police chief, with the fire chief. We need to have that. We need to be on the same page, feeling the same things. I think we have, depending on the district I've been in, we've done lots of different things for student safety. When I was in Medway, it was really, I don't think staff was ready for it. We did a live shooter drill as PD, and that was very traumatic for a lot of staff. And that was, at that point, pushing it a little too far. It was very real, very, it was intense. It was intense. It was so intense that I got shoved in a closet because people were screaming, running, and I was like, it's a drill, it's a drill. So people were just like so intense. But I think it's really important in Petersham and where I'm at now in Holliston, we do drills, age-appropriate drills, even in kindergarten. I think it's really important. I think sadly the world's a different place and we need to arm students with the information. It's very age-appropriate, non-threatening. The police and the fire work very closely with those students and do age-appropriate lessons and keep on bringing up the expectation and the training that they do with the students, and I think that's extremely important. What does a safe school look like from a student's point of view? I think at different levels it looks at different things. So, for instance, I think middle school, high school level, you need to have different things. We are very active in Sandy Hook Promise, Say Something, what is it? Say Something, Say Something? Sorry, thank you. I have too many different things, right? But I think you need to have, we have a lot of avenues for students to reach out, families to reach out. We have now, with the safety committee, the director of social emotional learning and equity has, in our safety committee, we've all partnered together, but we're starting this program called Handle with Care. And it's not to share out anything with staff about what's going on with a student, but it's giving them a heads up, like, something's going on with this student. Just beware, let's treat them, a little bit differently, and know that they might be going through some things. It's really important. I think you need to support the students in a lot of different ways. We partner a lot in our school district, which I think is important, with outside agencies. Schools can't do it all. So what kind of other agencies can be partners with the schools that we can send families that need those resources to those resources? There's just a lot of different ways, but I think it's critical. Students need to be able to know that they can come in school, they belong, they feel safe, they feel valued, and that's how they're gonna be able to learn.
Thank you. We have
You're welcome.
35 minutes left.
Yep.
Any follow-up?
Yep.
Mr. Sculberry?
Joni,
Yes.
let's say that you are working with your school resource officer.
Yes.
He comes to you and he says, or she says, I have reason to believe that one of the kids has some fentanyl in their locker.
Mm-hmm.
And then the school resource officer, she says to you, can you go in the locker and see what's in there and just let me know?
Mm-hmm.
What would you do?
We have different rights as a principal, right? So I used to, believe it or not, I'm not gonna out, like at different levels, I had to do searches in lockers,
Sure.
right? And the police do not have that latitude to do that.
Mhm.
I do. As a principal, you do. The one thing I would wanna make sure that our leaders here have a witness to everything they are doing. That is like paramount to do, right? But I think it's also then, depending on what is found, there's school consequences, and if it's drug related, then there's legal consequences.
Do you think it matters if you start the search, or if, as in my example, the police ask you to do the search for them?
I have only known, and I'm gonna say I have been trained by police that it's our responsibility, not theirs. They cannot go into a locker, and maybe that has changed, but it's always been my responsibility to do that as a school. We have more leeway than they do to do that.
So if they ask you, I'm like putting
Oh,
up,
yep,
this is the point.
yep.
If they ask you,
Yep.
what is your response? Yes or no?
My response is, I need
And this has
to,
not changed since the 70s.
right, but my response is, why are you asking me, like, what grounds do you have for me to search that, right? I can't just go and invade a student's right of privacy without me having some indication that I have a right to look there.
What if they give you a good reason? What if they say, I heard from another, a reliable source that this person brought in fentanyl today,
Mhm.
and they saw them this morning, and based on that tip, I'd like you to.
So I would ask a staff member, and I've had to do something like this, it involved a knife that was like 4.5 inches, which is a different category. I asked somebody to stand outside that student's locker, not allow them to go in. I did a mini investigation to find out, was it credible? And I found out it was credible, and then and only then did I search the locker.
If the police direct you to do the search when they couldn't do it themselves, it is illegal. Are you aware of that?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's why
So
I'm
when
saying I need to have all the evidence and, like,
But-
no.
If they're directing you,
I would have a side conversation
Okay.
and say, you're not the one to direct me doing that.
Any other follow-up? No. Mr. Sculberry, you did number 6.
how much independence would you provide your department heads parents and principals in selecting their staff, and what would be the role of superintendent in assessing the effectiveness of administration? What does an effective building administrator look like?
Okay, so first of all, the summertime, I would spend a lot of time on this, developing protocols with the principals. So what do we want to see in interviews? I would want some common questions that we develop together, what we're going to ask. And what do I mean by that? You guys are telling me your values by the questions you have chosen to ask me. We're doing the same thing when we hire teachers, paras, whatever, right? So there are some things that we want to make sure that they are in alignment with the beliefs of Lunenburg Public Schools. So I would like to have some shared questions. Doesn't have to be a lot, but like 1 or 2 questions that we all agree that we're going to ask, right? That's showing our values. I'd also want a process. So I know Lunenburg's a power school district. We use school records where I'm at, and the whole hiring process goes through school records. It's a really smooth way. I would want to see if there's buy-in for that and have the standardized way that you do searches that they have to like input all of these different things, right? I would let them make the decisions. I would want to meet with a person basically to kind of to kind of build that relationship, and so they see me as a superintendent. Before we do that though, I would want to have conversations. Every district I've been in, there's been different understandings. When you hire people, there are budgetary ramifications. So it needs to be like expectations set by me of, you know, if you are going to bring forward a person on this step, I need justification why you think that's the best person for the job, and somebody else could not do that, right? And those are things that we would develop together before hiring season takes place. Let's see here. And I'm sorry, what question are you asking me again?
This is question
Oh, 6. Okay, because I want to go back. I apologize. As you guys all know, I would be responsible to evaluate all the principals. So I need to follow the rubric that Desi has, and those are the 4 different standards that I have given you guys examples for me. So I need to evaluate them in instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. I am not here, nor have I ever been to a got you. So I'd be very clear about what do I think a strong instructional leader looks like, right? Kind of giving them an idea. It's not a got you. When I was a principal, I had really honest conversations. Everybody was used to me sitting down with everybody I evaluated and having conversations. That's where you learn best. It was never a got you. You know, I would always say, hey, you know, can you give me a little bit more evidence in this area? I know you do it, but give me some more examples, right? It's kind of having that relationship. I think it's collectively growing as a leadership group. We are trying to grow in where I'm at right now. Let me give you an example. Instructional leadership, we are doing learning walks together as an administrative team, as a district administrative team. And we're making tweaks and changes, and then they're bringing it down to their building levels. So it's kind of building like district-wide expectations and building that together, what that should look like at a building level, what it should look like for a principal's level, all of those different levels. I think that Boston Schools has done a really good job of doing some look-fors. We've been doing that in Holliston. What does it look like we're making a focus on student engagement. So what does it look like that the teacher's doing, the student's doing, right? And being really, really clear and taking that level of transparency to the principals.
Any follow-up? Karen?
Okay,
Okay.
we're back to the budget.
Okay.
In our current budget situation, we've been forced to have conversations about what in our school system are nice to haves and need to haves. What drives your view behind the things in a district that are absolute necessities and what are just nice to have? How do you communicate these views and decisions, and who are the stakeholders?
Some of these I've alluded to, but let me kind of go back and talk about some things I've pointed out already. Something that I would really want the principals to concentrate on is what I brought up earlier. Like if we're recommending having something or cutting something, I want them to take the emotion out and like, what did this program do, right? Like how many students did it impact? What was the cost for that? What is the concrete data that we can show that made that improvement? And then come to the realization if it didn't make improvement, we need to tweak that or let it go and come up with something else, right? Every decision that I want to make is student-centered, right? What is going to be the most effective use of funds for the students? I think, how do I communicate these views to the different stakeholders? It's many different ways. It's the superintendent's chats I talked about. It's me going out in the community for those meetings. It's the some more newsletters that I'm talking about. It's me talking at faculty meetings if the principals will have me. It's doing all of those different things. I also, something I don't think I talked about, something that I love my superintendent currently does. She just has drop-in sessions for staff. She'll go to a school and she'll just sit and she'll be like, you know, hey, anybody can come in and talk about anything during this block. I'm going to be in this room. I think it's important too to, you know, I have lived the lives of principals, and in evaluation season it is crazy. And in a small school district, you are over the top straight out. I would offer to them, hey, I will cover your school. You go and do, I want you to concentrate on writing evaluations, right? It's me kind of doing a lot of different things. If they're prepping for the budget, kind of covering and giving them, you know, time to prep for the budget. But it's looking at a lot of different lenses. It's, you know, my entry plan is kind of what I do all the time anyways. So in those principal chats, the superintendent's chats, the superintendent meetings, I'm asking people, what is working well for you in Lunenburg? You know, what do you want to see change? Tell me why. I am going to push back and ask people specifically, though, why, and then like kind of hear their reasons for justification, right? And people get very used to me as a leader. I am more than willing and open to talk about lots of different things, but I need you to bring me the data, the information, why that's your view, right? It just can't be that I think so. It just can't be, you know, that I know. So all of those different steps would help drive budgetary decisions.
Any follow-up? Mr. Beardmore?
Yes?
I failed to introduce myself earlier.
Oh, okay.
Peter Beardmore, and
Thank you.
I am a marketer, so.
Awesome. Yeah.
One of the topics that's continually come up in our budget meetings over the course of the last 3 years that I've sat on the school committee, and I think this may be common across many school systems of our size, but I'm curious for your thinking on this topic, is the whole topic of what we call here singletons. I don't know if that's a common word, but it's, you know, classes that we offer once and they have like less than 10 kids in them. Honors anatomy comes to mind, where if you have a student that wants to be a nursing major or go to pre-med, they need to take honors anatomy, but we have like 6 kids in honors anatomy. I'm making up the number. It's not 25.
I heard you.
And they're very expensive classes to run, and they create a gigantic scheduling headache for our administrators because this kid's got to take it her junior year, and she can't take that and honors English or something, right? So, or AP English. Do you have any thoughts in terms of, you mentioned like how many students does this thing affect? And we run into this with athletics and music and art and singletons. And,
Absolutely.
And can you just share with me kind of how you approach this?
Yes.
In terms of what we have to do frequently, which is making the least bad decisions, right, when it comes to budget.
No, I hear you. There's a lot of very creative things you can do. Today I was up touring in here, and it was really interesting, and I apologize because I don't remember her name. She's a French teacher, and she was...
I know her pretty well.
Okay. Oh, uh-oh. Wait, are you related? Is he related?
Oh, no, keep busting his balls.
Okay, you guys have to give me the real scoop here. I don't know. Okay, the joke's
My
on me.
former
All right.
spouse.
I'm sorry. Okay, no response. All right.
Keep going.
Okay, I didn't make this up though. I did not plan this. Okay, so anyways, she was out in the hall teaching a class, right? And so she said, and I said, oh, what are you teaching? She said French. And I said, oh, I'm from Holliston. We have a French immersion program. I said, we were kind of talking about that. And she was telling me, and I apologize, I don't remember the level. She had one level outside, and she had another level inside, right? That's very common, and that's something very smart to do. Another thing is to communicate to students what classes are going to be offered when. So you can make an intelligent decision, this class is only going to be offered every other year, but we have let you know about it, right? So it's our responsibility to let them know. Those are two suggestions that come to mind. We were doing both of those things at Turner's Falls High School, Great Falls Middle School. We needed to. We didn't have the staff, we didn't have the space, we didn't have the student bodies, right? And you can't, we were in a different situation than here. I was bleeding students to the Voc School because they did not have a cap at the time. I was very encouraged to hear that they have a cap. So I'm like, okay, because we had to come up with how can we stop the bleed. So we brought in innovation pathways, 2 different innovation pathways. One my first year for healthcare and social assistance, advanced manufacturing my second year. You also need to appreciate that you have a higher percentage of students going to college than it was at Gil Montague. So it's even more critical that we offer those opportunities to students that they could leave with certifications in actual fields, that I went out in the community, went to businesses, marketed it, Mr. Marketer here, and sold the opportunities, and they said if they do a good job, we're gonna hire them after school. But I think it's looking very creatively, and I think it's, you have to be a school just because you're small doesn't mean that you cannot offer innovative electives. You just have to be more creative, how you offer them and when you offer them, and communicate those out.
Any other follows?
All right, I'm up.
I want to know the real story though afterwards, just saying.
That's just so funny.
I'll tell you, we won't take up your time. A successful superintendent must build strong relationships beyond the school walls. How have you worked with stakeholders like parents, unions, local businesses, the finance committee, select board, or other town departments to align school priorities with broader community needs? How do you see your role as superintendent in fostering those relationships and ensuring, the district's voice is heard in broader town conversations? Can you share a time when collaboration made a difference and how you built trust along the way?
Yeah, I think I've given you a lot of different examples, but let me give you some other ones I haven't given you, right? Okay, so let me give you an example of something I just did in the fall with community members. So we have, one of my many hats is I'm in charge of the multi-language learners, and we have exploded. Our percentages have gone way up in the 4 years I've been there. We hear, I have heard through my L teachers of the needs that the families have in the community and how they are having trouble navigating, just, signing their kids up for sports, just, surviving in Holliston, right? That, legal services, all these different things. So it's like, okay, let's make that different. So what we did this year, and I did it with the help of the L teachers, they gave me a lot of ideas of what those families needed. So they were telling me, legal services, sports, they were telling me mental health services, that, all these different things, right? So we had a district multi-language learner night for the entire district. It was at the elementary schools, they have shared space. We were able to bring in, and some of the evidence I gave you is the slideshow. It's called running slide. I'm sorry, I don't know what I called it. Let me look here for a second. It is called Copy of Multilingual Running Loop. Those were the agencies that I recruited. They actually had booths there. We had translators there. And so we had translators. We have 6 primary languages in Holliston. So yes, so we had, yeah, there's a lot. So we had translators going to those booths, and we also had a device called Pocket Talks, and they translate. So we were able to go and actually connect families with those services, right? I lived overseas in South Korea for 3 years with my husband's job, and then when it was a third world country, and I really appreciate the frustration when you don't speak a language of navigating your world in another country. So we were trying to meet those needs. But I also partnered with, the police came, right? The PTO came. So I brought in all these other resources that the town has. And it was really a town-wide event. I try to do that every time that we do things. Let me give you another example. One of the curriculum, two of the curriculum people do an amazing job called Mathapalooza. It's a district-wide event that we bring all these different people in, and it's hands-on events. I make sure, that I am there and I'm running the hands-on activities with the students. When I was in Medway, I developed a program that had never been there before. We had over 450 families and students come that first night, the first time. They got a ticket every time they did an activity, and I had gotten businesses to donate a whole bunch of different things, such as bowling, golf lessons, jewelry, art lessons. It's just like fun for the community, and those businesses were recognized. So I think that you need to look at it differently. I think there's so many different avenues that agencies, businesses can really help promote academics and opportunities for community members, and they were thrilled to be a part of it. I make sure, though, that I'm communicating with them, writing them thank you notes, all of that, right?
Any follow-up?
What were the 6 languages?
You're gonna ask me, Portuguese is our biggest language,
Yeah.
right? So we have Portuguese, we have Brazilian Portuguese, then we have Mandarin, we have Spanish, we have, I apologize, it begins with a T and it's an Indian language.
We probably don't know either, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, we have Russian, we have, what's my missing one? I'm sorry, I can't think right now.
That is unbelievable.
Yes, yeah.
Laura?
Yeah.
There are times when you are challenged by a situation where you need to call upon every personal skill you have to work it out.
Every day.
Can you tell about a situation where you had to use your best skills and judgment to resolve a problem? How can that experience help us appreciate your potential as our superintendent?
Let me give you an example of when I was a principal, and this is like really outside my comfort zone, so that's an example I want to give you, right? So I was challenged when I was hired at Gilmontague. The superintendent was who I talk to all the time, who's one of my references. He made it very clear to me that he was tasking me with addressing the racial biases that had been in the district that had not been addressed. Definitely had not been trained in that. I'm an older white woman. I knew that I was not going to be taken seriously and with staff or students. My first week on the job, we had summer school, and I had students screaming at me about I needed to do something, I needed to help them, what am I going to do? I know that I could not do that alone. I know I needed support. It's bigger than me. So Turner's Falls is not far from Northampton. There's a collaborative out in Northampton. I work with them to come and work with the staff and myself on training us, and I always get this wrong, and I think you corrected me or somebody did. It used to be called teaching tolerance. It's like social justice standards. I can't remember what it's called now.
Learning for justice.
Thank you. You guys corrected me. Thank you. They have 4 strategies on how to address bias in the moment, okay? So the collaborative came out, trained us on those 4 strategies. I was there with the staff, right, learning those strategies, because after talking to the staff, I realized that, because I'm like, this is a really caring staff. They build relationships with students. Why has this not been addressed? And I asked, and they were very honest with me, and we've never been trained. We don't know how to address this. We're afraid we're gonna make a mistake. Okay, we're gonna learn together. So we went through that whole process. After we all had been trained, we used examples that had happened in the school prior to me getting there and practicing that on each other using those 4 strategies. As we were going through this whole process, I was very transparent with our students and families about what was going on. So I don't know if I said this, I'm sorry, I've been in too many interviews today. We had, when I was principal at Turner's Falls, we had a once a week all school meeting with all high school students, and we had a twice a week all school meeting with the middle school students. So we were very clear about the steps we were taking and what they could expect from us, and to make sure to tell me or somebody that they felt comfortable with if we were not addressing those issues. I also made it very clear, you have to understand we are trying, we're gonna be making mistakes, give me feedback on what we're doing, right? Was everything perfect? No. Did my culture and climate surveys go way up? Yes. You know, they were feeling heard. It wasn't just that, I had a lot of student voice in those culture and climate clubs. You know, that we brought a lot of things to the school that they felt like they didn't have. High school students were not having pep rallies. I'm like, come on, we're in the United States, you guys need to experience a pep rally, right? What do you have? The students ran that, I didn't, right? It got to the point where you were talking about how do you empower others? I empower students too. Because they ran those meetings, I sat and planned with them. I knew what they were going to do, you know, so it wasn't like, you know, they were coming out of left field, right? But I knew it, they love doing that. That's how that empowers them. Staff were doing presentations, again, not me. People know what my role is. They don't need to hear me talking all the time, right? They need to hear others, and they need to see others in leadership roles, and they need to be taken seriously.
All right, we have 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Any follow-up? All right, I have the next question. Number 10. Schools rely on the daily work of many people beyond classroom teachers. How do you build a culture where all staff feel valued and heard? How have you supported these roles, and how do you plan to foster trust and partnership, as well as attracting, developing, and retaining staff?
So interesting you should ask this, because we were talking about this at lunch today, so it was kind of a common theme that came up, that people told me, you know, that the need to do that. I think it's a lot of different ways, right? It's me meeting with different groups. It's making sure that we are providing support for different groups. Let me give you an example. Paras, where I work, were definitely not feeling supported when they got onboarded. We created a union rep for paras that's volunteer that they could go to and ask questions. We have tracks, PD tracks, professional development tracks for their needs. We listen to what they want. I think that you need to recognize people in lots of different ways. I think you need to do it in, you know, opening statements, convocations. I think you need to do it in newsletters. I think I need to write personal notes. I was telling them today, when I was elementary school principal, I had the students take a file folder and decorate it, and we called it smile files. I know it sounds really silly, but you put in there all like the good things that you get from people, those handwritten notes or those good emails for parents or whatever, and when you're having a really bad day, you pull those out. I would want to add to people's smile files.
Thank you.
You're
Any
welcome.
follow-up? All right. Come on.
For Lunenburg to be successful, we need a staff that is invested in our success and individuals who are capable of wearing more than one hat. Teachers, for example, need to drive excellence and achievement, but it also helps if they can bring their additional talents to extracurriculars, clubs, coaching sports, etc. What hiring practices would you put in place in Lunenburg to ensure that our staff is driving excellence in student achievement while also helping to meet our myriad of needs? By the way, I'm keeping track of every time one of the candidates says the phrase "many hats." Just to say
What am I up to?
You're at 2.
2?
Yeah, that's pretty
Okay,
good.
okay.
Most are higher than that.
All right. I know the value of a teacher also being a coach. You see a student in a different light, right? You can build that relationship even more solidly. I would want to encourage that, right? I think that when you are hiring, and I would want to do, I think you could make a form through records, through Power School Records. We are creating forms all the time where I am, but I would want to get feedback from staff, what they would, extracurriculars that they would be interested in doing, and then kind of tapping into that to use for the interview process, right? People are very passionate about different things. It could be that they played that sport, or they did, drama, or they did music, when they were growing up, and they want to share their talents with others. But it's really tapping in. Everybody has a passion, and as an educator, they're in education for the right reason, and they want to help students. So it's really making that connection to the two. Part of my dissertation is kind of what my dissertation was about in a weird way, but was working with public schools, businesses, and colleges to make those connections, to provide PD and different support for teachers. But this is the same kind of idea, right? It's figuring out a protocol and a system, and I think you could do that through Power School Records to make those connections in taking people's passions and interests and fitting them into the right slots for extracurricular activities.
Follow up? All right. Yeah.
Please describe a decision you made that in retrospect you wish you had made differently. What did you learn from this process or experience?
My second principalship, I made an assumption, and you know what they say about making assumptions, right? And I found out the hard way that, I did a pre-entry plan, an entry plan every place I've been, but I failed to ask what is the best method for me to get information to you as community members. Petersham, everybody had a car, they could come to me. I made the mistake in Gil Montague and found out that I needed to go to them. I did not ask that, and shame on me. So that is something I ask all the time now. How can I meet your needs and not make that assumption? That was a big snafu on my part, but I recovered, and I used that knowledge then to find out where is a good spot. And I talked about that community center that I went to, and that was central, and people didn't need to drive there. It was like a block off Main Street, so then I met their needs. But I think that really cements, even though you can do that whole SWOT analysis, I need to add other questions, and it depends on the stakeholders I'm talking to, right? And there's added questions, and that was just like a big aha to me. Yeah, not everybody can do that, right? I need to remember all the constituents in that group
Any
and
follow-up?
not make assumptions.
All right, Peter?
What do you anticipate being the most difficult part of this job? What parts of this role do you think you'll require the most support in, and what would that support look like?
Difficult part is always not having enough time, right? And unfortunately, you can't make that, but you can get creative in how you use your time. And so my job is to look at how can I most effectively use that time. I think support I need is from the stakeholder groups and getting honest feedback on what they want from me, right? And what they expect to see from me, and what they view as the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats to Lunenburg. Another support I would need from you is to be able to continue my relationship with these statewide groups, because that's how I keep in contact, and that's how I can bring knowledge back. I think that, I always need to learn and grow as a person. I need to learn and grow about what is currently happening out there legally, what's happening policy-wise, what's happening budgetary-wise, and making sure that you're armed with the information too. I was lucky enough, I don't know if it was my first year or second year in Holliston, I apologize. But it was a school committee that wanted to go to the shared MASC conference, so I found that very helpful that we went together. We went to a lot of the same sessions and had conversations about that afterwards. I thought that was good to kind of calibrate and make sure I was on the same wavelength as them, or if not, make sure I was understanding where they were coming from. So those are just some examples. I would want, also, I'm sorry, for you to be very clear with me as your expectations from me, right? And I would want to develop a system that works for you. I think it's, time is of the essence. I know how important it is in my role as superintendent to keep you informed. So you know that if, I'm just making this up, if there was a safety concern in a school, I would just do a group text or whatever you would want. Hey, there's a situation at this school, principal will be sending out a message later, just giving you a heads up, right? I want that type of relationship. You should expect that from me. It should not be after the fact. You might not be getting a lot of details because I'm in the thick of things, having to deal with it, right? But you should expect to get that from me. And I know that's really important, and I think sometimes, I'm not gonna put you out, but I might have to rely on you, because as a principal, sometimes the stuff was hitting the fan, and I went to my assistant and said, can you please inform the superintendent about this, right? And so, I mean, that would be like between us, and I think I know it's critical. You should not be caught down, or caught without knowing something big that's going down.
If you don't go to Liz, something's wrong.
Yeah, Liz runs the show.
If I don't what?
I said, if you don't go to Liz, something's wrong.
Oh, I know.
Really kidding.
I know. No, I talked to Kate, and I was just talking to her about that. I truly appreciate, and I need that. We were just talking about, I need her to be my critical friend and say, listen, Joni, no, that's not gonna fly here. And I said, can you be honest with me? And she's like, absolutely, and I need that, right? And all I ask is be respectful and don't, that's all I ask, right? But I mean, that's what I want, right? Because that's how I can be better. That's how I can do a better job here. And I would ask the same of you to get feedback from you. Just be respectful to me, and I'm willing to hear whatever.
All right, we have completed all of the questions and the time. At this time, I will turn it over to you for a closing statement.
Yep. I think you guys can see that, I'm very passionate about the job. I'm very passionate about relationships. I think that's my most critical role, and I think that's how I can move work within the building, and that means at all levels. Out in the community, out in the different groups within the school. People need to see me, they need to trust me, they need to know that I'm following through, and I have the students' interests at heart. I would be honored to work in this school district, and I would work my heart off for you, so.
Thank you.
Thank
I want to
you.
remind the community members that they can fill out the surveys either online or in person. I want to thank you, Joni, for spending the day with us. And
Thank you very much.
interviewing with us. And we'll be meeting tomorrow for deliberations. At this time, I'll look for a motion to adjourn at 8:48 p.m.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Ms. Brzezowski?
Yes.
Mr. Beardmore?
Yes.
Ms. Archambault?
Yes.
Mr. Scalabrini?
Yes.
And a yes for myself. Thank you, we are adjourned. Good night.